Welcome one and all, it's time for some more lockdown hobby time. And look at this bad boy. So, this is a little bit later than usual because I spent a fair bit of the day waiting as the various postal services arrived, bearing no paint. So, not able to continue with these suckers today because everything that remains on the Grotesques requires paints that haven't arrived yet. So, hoping that they'll get here tomorrow so I can continue with that. So tonight, we're going to mix things up a bit and get back to work on the Hellfane, the magnificent beast that he is. So I've got the crew here as well, which will be perched inside when it's finished. And there's not any more parts to stick on it, but there are crevices to be filled, as always in life. And you can see here that this front piece, anyone who claims this actually fits on without some kind of really bizarre ritual is lying, because you can see that huge crevice there, and it does attach at both sides, but you do end up with a bit of a gap. And every single painted one I've seen so far has had gaps in it, so I'm going to buck the trend, and I'm actually going to fill those gaps right now with some green stuff. So we've got Joshua and Steve in the chat so far. I'm not sure how long this stream is going to be because I might run out of things to green stuff on this guy at some point. But tomorrow, if those paints arrive in a timely fashion, I am going to be getting on with the Grotesque, and we can hopefully finish them within a couple of days, which will be a treat for everyone. Such a delight. Okay, so I've cut off some green stuff from this huge roll of green stuff here. And we're going to roll this sucker up. Let's do it on camera so you can actually see it. Look at that. This is top-notch entertainment here. Green stuff rolling live. You ever seen anything so thrilling in all your life? What's everyone else been doing today? And what's everyone doing this evening? Dwarven Darkness is here as well. Filling up nicely. Okay, so with this green stuff here, I'm going to fill in these crevices. Let's point to it precisely. So this area here, there is going to be green stuff applied there, and then poked into place with this handy dandy tool. Yes, green stuff hotness is definitely one way to describe it. So let's start by filling that crevice. Might not need this much. There's always too much green stuff. However much you roll up, it's always too much. Okay, just gently plopping that into place, and now we can start working it in there. Well, I wouldn't expect this episode to go longer than an hour, if it's getting a bit late for anybody. Tomorrow we should be back to normal though, with the afternoon time slot, and probably a couple of hours of painting, assuming the paints arrive. I know they have been dispatched, and they were either going to arrive today or tomorrow, in theory. So we'll have to see on that. So today I watched Ghoulies Go to College, which is a cinematic masterpiece. Don't know if anyone's seen it. But the first two Ghoulies, if I remember, I haven't watched them for a while, but I don't seem to remember them being as silly as the third one is. Like, it just went completely off the rails. I'm sure they were still silly, because it's ghoulies we're talking about here, but there was some semblance of seriousness in the first two. The third one, they were very much wisecracking a lot more than I remember them doing in the previous installments. Steve's working on Gore Rider still. Malevolous loves this model. It is a very nice model indeed, just lots of gaps to fill, as you often get with big resin models. So put some green stuff on the other side of this crevice now. If it'll leave my finger, there we go. Don't think you can really see what I'm doing here because it's a bit of a difficult angle to get. But it's in there. Oh, there, that crevice there. Just shoving it in there. And over to the other side. So if anyone's wondering, the paints I'm waiting for are Vallejo Game Colour. The specific ones I want, there's a red that I'm going to use on the open mouths and some of the other parts on the grotesques, and also a yellow that I'm going to use on the eyes, because the yellow I've got here is very, very dried up and annoying to use. So we're going to wait for that as well. Just cramming the green stuff into the crevice. Because we can't have unintentional crevices everywhere, can we? It's just not the way to do things. And I'm going to put some in on the other side as well. Graham is here. Hello. We're just filling in crevices on the Hellfane with green stuff right now. So if anyone's just joining, this is the main issue here. This front plate doesn't want to sit up snugly against this helmet and still touch the other fences. So that's the main issue with the model, I would say. So some people have just left that gap there. Some people have pushed this up against the front and just had it not touching the other sides of the fence, or barely touching the other sides of the fence. I'm going to try and see if I can just fill in that gap though. It's going to be tricky. I mean, it might take quite a bit of green stuff, but I'm going to give it a go. Because I'm waiting for my goddamn paints. So we can't carry on with the grotesques right now. So, Ghoulies Go to College was an educational experience. I don't have any specific memories of the Ghoulies actually speaking in Ghoulies 1 or 2. They probably did, but it certainly wasn't to the extent that they did in this one. And it actually reminds me quite a lot of the way Ginger Dead Man 3 handled things, the plot in this, because the Ghoulies weren't really necessary for the plot at all. They were more like just background decoration to what was really going on at the college. And exactly the same was true in Ginger Dead Man 3, where there was a whole story going on that didn't really involve a homicidal baked good. And he was just kind of hanging around doing crazy things separate from the plot. If anyone didn't know, Ginger Dead Man 3 is also known as Saturday Night Cleaver. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this filling in here. So there's those two gaps filled in. Brad is here as well. Hello. So we're just filling in crevices on the Hellfane right now, which is very exciting, obviously. But what I really want to be doing is finishing the paintwork on the Grotesques, but can't really do that because I'm waiting for paints to arrive. So, filled in those two gaps. What else do we want to do with the screen stuff? Well, I'm going to roll it out, and then I'm going to try and jam it into this gigantic crevice on the front here, between the head and this front fence plate. And if it gets smushed down too far, which it probably will do, then I'm going to let it dry, let it set, and then put some more in there on top of it later. Because often you will find that when you're green stuffing a crevice, it jams in further. Because unless you're jamming it into something that has a definitive back to it, then you can often end up pushing it further down than anticipated. Although I am anticipating it this time. Brad says, what's your preference, green stuff, grey stuff, or milliput? I don't think I've used grey stuff before. Milliput is fine, but for different purposes, I think. Milliput would be fine for this job, I think. Filling in a gap like this. But I've already got the green stuff rolled out, so might as well use it. Okay, so what I could do is poke it with something underneath to push it back up a bit, because it has gone right down into the crev. Crev is short for crevice, by the way. It's a word that all the cool cats use. Well, I'm pretty sure it's been a while since cool people were referred to as cats. So he's attached to the underside of this pot It's pinned onto it, and then I've got blue tack underneath to just hold the pins a little bit in place. You can bend them over underneath, but I want to keep them somewhat intact so I can use those to pin him to his base later as well. It's not that big of an issue if they do get ruined, though, because I can always drill fresh holes in its feet at a later date. I'm currently seeing 0 likes on the video, and I find that unacceptable. Everyone knows how red hot and sizzling this entertainment is. Steve says those films sound awful. No, they're not. Ginger Dead Man 1 is actually pretty good. Ginger Dead Man 2, The Passion of the Crust, is slightly less good. And Ginger Dead Man 3, Saturday Night Cleaver, is quite poor. Okay, it's very bad. The Ghoulies series has its moments. I would say those moments are probably not in Ghoulies Go to College, although it does have a few fun incidents. But Ghoulies 1 and 2 I seem to remember being superior. See, people are name-dropping suspected murderers in the chat there. Okay, so I think this is a good start to filling the crevice, but I'm going to have to leave that to set. Because if I just add more on top of it, I'll just keep squidging it further and further down each time. So it'll be like I'm adding nothing at all, nothing at all, nothing at all. So I'll be coming back to that at some point. And down the sides of the head, I'm not sure if you can actually see, but there's a gap down here as well. So I'm going to fill in down the side of it at some point as well, but I need the top to dry first, so I'm not just squidging that out of place. Just going to get a knife in there as well to do a bit of strategic scraping to make sure I'm not obscuring any detail, because the green stuff will just get shoved in there further by the tool I'm using. I actually want to remove it from a certain spot, so the knife is required for that. So getting some of that excess out of there. Because there is a point I don't want it to reach, the green stuff here. Point at which I'm not filling in the gap anymore. And it's just kind of poking out. So let's check the other side for that phenomenon as well. Looks pretty good over there. So when I finish the grotesques, this sucker is going to be the next thing that I paint. So it's not only the beast itself, but also obviously the crew. I'm going to do something with them in a minute actually, to give you a bit more insight into my process. Okay, so we're going to leave that to set now. It's all the way I want it. And then I'll come back and fill in the rest of that crevice later when the first lot is set. I'm quite happy with the sides of the fence here. So down there and there. I think I've got some nice even cover up there. So we'll put him to one side. Brad says, do you build up terrain often, any themed Abyssal Dwarf terrain? I do need to make my lava terrain actually, for my lava mat, because I don't really have any. And it puts me off wanting to use the lava mat in battle reports because none of the terrain fits onto the mat, really. So I should get a set. I don't know whether I'm actually going to make it myself, whether I'm going to try and buy some though. Something that's definitely on my agenda though. So, what I've done with these guys, they've got a couple of holes drilled into their feet, and then I'm going to super glue this wire in there, which is 1mm wire. And the reason I use 1mm wire is because I drill the holes with a 1mm drill bit. So if I were to use an average paper clip instead, that's actually slightly smaller than 1mm, your average paper clip. I think it's something like 0.8mm. So if you use that, it's not going to hold as snugly. So we're going to super glue these on, and then we'll probably use these to pin them to the model at the end afterwards as well. And if I decide not to pin them to the model afterwards, I can just snip them off underneath. So I'm going to blob a bit of super glue onto the hole I've drilled in the foot. A bit too much there. Then we're going to poke the wire in there firmly in. Then let's snip it about there. You want a little bit of length, just so when it's in this, it's going to be quite stable when he's stood in there. Sometimes it's not necessary to actually glue the pins into the foot, but it just adds extra stability. So the reason I cut this off after it's in the foot is because sometimes it's hard to judge how deep the hole you've drilled is until you really shove it in there, and then you can judge how much you want to be sticking out and then snip at that point. So a bit more glue here now. Steve's off. Ta-ta for now, and we'll see you tomorrow, Steve, most likely. Okay, there's his other foot. And when that is dry, he's going to be pinned into this piece of cork. For painting, the cork I use is weighed down with coins as well, to stop them falling over. It's especially useful when the models have metal parts in them, like, for example, the old decimators that I've painted. So you know what, I'm going to go crazy here and put the glue onto 2 feet at the same time. I like to live dangerously. So that's his feet done as well. And the final member of the crew. So done with the super glue now, let's get the lid back on. Okay, we've got pins sticking out of their feet now. This is very useful stuff. I use this on pretty much every model that I do. So anything that I'm painting is always pinned by the feet to something. These guys are pinned to these old paint mixing pots, which are small, so these are also weighed down with coins jammed into them to make sure they don't fall over too easily. Let's see. Oh, that one went. But yeah, it's difficult to knock them over. So we're just going to wait for that super glue to dry, and then we're going to jam them into these bits of cork here. So I'm sure this isn't going to be a long episode. We're going to be back to the full length and more of a normal time tomorrow, I think. Which is going to be very exciting because I might actually finish all the paintwork on the Grotesques, which will leave the next day for varnishing. Because, let's see, so these guys really just need the eyes and the mouths doing, and there's a few little bits of uncovered raw flesh below the skin that's going to be painted in red, the same as the inside of the mouths as well. Apart from that, there isn't really anything else to do on them. So once I've done those colours, and those are the last that are going on, that's just going to be a case of going around each model, looking very closely for any mistakes and covering them up. And that'll be that. So hopefully I can do all that tomorrow if the paints arrive not too late in the day, giving me plenty of time. And then the next day we can get the varnish on them, hopefully, and then stick them on the bases. So the end is in sight. Very exciting times, and then we can move on to actually painting the Hellfane. I'm going to turn the light off for a second. So the Hellfane itself is going to be interesting to document the paint process with that as well, because my lesser obsidian golems, the greater obsidian golem, and the hexcaster were all painted the same way that the majority of the flesh, when I say flesh, it's actually stone, but you get the idea, of that giant lava rock rhino of doom. It's going to be the same look, so you'll see how I accomplish that and which order I apply the different colours, which might surprise you, or it might not, but it might. And then the top of the Hellfane and the crew are going to be painted the same way that I paint all the gold stuff, although the top of it, let's just have a look here. So there's a lot of just plain flat areas on the top of it here that you're not going to see. I'm not sure whether those are going to be painted gold. That would seem a bit of a waste to just do the floor in gold. So I might do that in silver possibly. But it's mostly going to be gold. I am going to break it up though with other colours, because there's huge areas of metal on the back here. You can see all these pipes and this big face on the back, various exhausts. But before it's sprayed or anything, I'm going to make sure that all the crevices are filled to my satisfaction. So the main one is obviously where I've just been filling in here, around this helmet. But there are also some others that were filled in previously that I'm just going to have to check are all perfect and to my liking. And also, we could make the base to this as well at some point soon. I need to actually find where I've put this thing's base. It'll be around here somewhere. But that might be another thing we can do very soon. Where is that base? Should be in a box somewhere. Maybe it's in this box that I'm rummaging through right now. No sign of it in there. What about... there's a Titan size base. I'm not sure whether that's supposed to be for him or whether that's for my Shadow Hulk. But either way, I've got another Titan base floating around somewhere. So we'll be able to make his base as well. And if you see my other bases, for example, let's just whip this one out. So this is the Grotesque base here. And I leave areas with lava exposed. So not all of it is going to be the rock, which is actually cork and crystals. However, the Hellfane is such a magnificently huge beast. I'm not sure how much lava I'm going to be able to actually fit on the base. Let's just have a quick fit here and see. So, just as a general idea, it is quite a beast. Once its feet are on there, and on the other side, yeah, there's not that much space in front or behind the feet at all. So I could possibly have a very thin area of lava running all the way around the edge, which would give me more freedom to cut out the piece of cork that isn't perfectly straight at the edges. So I could actually have it so it's not touching the edges at all, just a very thin layer of lava around the edge. Because I think the feet, there's just enough space to do that, probably. And in this direction, yeah, I think it could be possible to do that. So we may well go that route with it. So Brad is asking how I paint the lava. Okay, let's whip out some lava to show you again. So this is going to be the Grotesque Champions base. And this is painted with, first of all, prime the whole thing in black. Then red. All this ground area here that's going to become lava, the whole thing just painted red. Then orange painted slightly further in. And then on top of that, a lighter orange painted there as well. So that's even further inside. So it gets lighter the more into the lava clump you go. And then, where is the paint pot? Nope, that's not it. It's this one right here. Mordant Earth. So that is applied in a medium thickness all over the lava. And then when that dries, it cracks and gives you this very nice effect, which looks very tasty indeed, especially on the gigantic bases like this. And you can see the colours quite clearly when you have it tilted upwards, when you're looking directly above it. But when you're looking at it flat, you see most of the kind of black, crackly earth effect. So the more of an angle you have, the more colour you see. I think it's quite a tasty effect. So you'll be able to see me working on more of that, I'm sure, at some point soon. Is it the same size as the steel behemoth? I think it's actually bigger. It's similar, but I think it is larger. The actual beast itself might be the same kind of size, but all this ornamental stuff on the back, that probably makes it larger than the steel behemoth. Okay, so let's get these guys stuck to the cork. Now, there are already holes in the cork from previous models being on there, so occasionally you'll find that they actually line up perfectly with the holes that are already there. So, let's see. Yeah, that guy's pretty perfect fit in there, isn't he? So he's going to sit on that one. Let's see. Do these holes match up? And look at that as well. Very nice. And what about this guy? Are there any holes that he can slot into? I don't think so. He's quite a wide fella, so I think we're going to have to drill some more holes in the cork for him, because I don't just want to press it in and accidentally bend the pins. So let's start off here, close to the edge. And where does the other one want to go then? Right there. Okay, there's the boss dude, and he's sitting comfortably there. So it's very hard to knock these over because the resin's very light, and there's a coin stuck to the bottom of the cork. So how far does it have to go before he falls over? Pretty damn far. So they'll be painted like that. Before I actually paint them, I'm going to go around and check them one final time to make sure there's no mould lines or anything on them. And I might bend one of the weapons back into place actually, because this is a little bit crooked, this bit of resin here. So I might just heat that up and bend that so it's a bit straighter. Other than that, that's going to be them done for now. So, we've only been going 36 minutes. So I might put some cork on this base. Brad says, why do you think they put it on a smaller base then? Well, that's just their standard base size for all their Titans is 75mm square. And it's the issue a lot of companies run into. GW do it a lot. And they'll increase the base size for something. For example, you could look at either Mantic monsters, or you could look at Space Marines as the same thing. Models gradually seem to get bigger over time, and the bases stay the same for a while, and eventually the model gets too big for the base. So they think, you know what, we need a bigger base because the model's too big now. So they make the base larger, but then they look at that as a license to make the models even bigger because they've got a new, even bigger base. So the model gets ridiculously huge, and then it overlaps the edges of the new, even bigger base. So I think Mantic, realizing after they'd upped the monster base size from 50 to 75mm, they got a little bit excited and started making their monsters even bigger. So they barely fit on this size anymore. So we're going to find a nice bit of cork to put on here. Don't think I've already got a spare piece that's the right size to use there. I think I'm going to have to rip off a piece. Let's have a look. Unless there's a random piece in this box here that's the right size. No, not really. So we'll put that down again, and the giant cork sheet of doom right here. So I'm going to take a piece off this. I'm not going to take from any of the edges because they're nice and straight and I might want to use those in the future. So I've got a couple of nice edges that I'm not going to taint. So I'm probably going to go from here, which is 2 corners that I've already cut out. So let's have a look. How much do we need here? I'm going to cut out, I'm going to draw exactly where I want to cut. When I say exactly, I mean roughly. So let's see, that would be the size there. So a bit smaller than that because we're not going right to the edge. So I'll just draw the size of this base first. And then I'll know to cut out a bit smaller than that. Okay. Now, where did I put the scissors? They may be on the other side of the room. So, I'm going to grab the scissors right now, and you can just sit there patiently and wait for my return. Not that it's going to be too much of an absence, because you can still hear me probably. And where are the scissors? They'll be around here somewhere. Hiding. It's difficult for them to hide because they're large and blue. Gotta be around here somewhere. Surely I wouldn't have taken them out of this room. That would be crazy. Maybe I did. Maybe they're in a different room and we'll just have to improvise. I suppose I could just go and look for them in a different room and leave you completely abandoned and in silence for a minute. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to venture downstairs and leave you to your own devices for a minute. Someone try and keep the peace in here, if you don't mind. Don't want any wild parties breaking out in the next 30 seconds while I'm gone. I have returned with scissors. I know the excitement is thick in the air right now. Stu Rat is claiming to have hidden the scissors, but I think that's a lie. So, I'm going to cut this out now. Not quite as large as the pencil line that I drew there, because we are going to leave a bit around the edge for lava. Okay. Let's get these guys out of the way so I don't knock them over with my flailing cork and scissor action. So, for this part, let's get the clippers out actually. Need a bit more of a delicate touch here, maybe. Maybe even the knife. So, okay, giving it a bit of a score there. Let's see if it can just break off. Yeah, there we go. Excellent. Okay, so it's about the same size as that at the moment. We're just going to break off a bit round the edges. And let's see, Mr. Hellfane, how much of this cork can we remove, do you think? Now, the parts of his feet that are actually touching the ground, this foot doesn't touch the ground. Or if it does, it's only a tiny bit at the back of it. So, we could ditch a little bit around the side there. From this facing, there's actually a decent gap to lose there. And this one again, yeah, I think we're going to be alright here. We can lose a reasonable chunk off each side and make it look not too weird and uniform. So, I'm going to start snipping away at it. because we don't want it to be even, because that would just look weird. Straight lines, can't be having that. If it looks too straight when I'm finished, I'm going to take more off. So this side, that's sufficiently uneven, I think, to look natural. And round the corner. The bases might be the most fun part of this army for me, because they're easy, the steps are very simple and quick, there's no precision required really. So there's no real pressure. Chop, chop, chop. Okay, let's see how that's looking on there. So we're getting there. It's a bit too little of a gap, so it's going to be difficult to get the lava effect in there if the gap's too small. So we're going to take a little bit more off from this edge, I think. And a few more random bits here and there, so it's not so even looking. So how are we looking now? That's looking better, isn't it? This side maybe is a little bit too straight, might do a little bit more off there. The other sides are looking good now. So let's take a bit from there. Maybe a little bit more out this corner. Like so. I think I'm happy with that. So let's just compare this to the Hellfane's feet. So the cork is fine there, fine there, fine there, and for this facing, obviously I don't know which way round it's going to go on the base yet, but it looks like it would line up perfectly there, and with these feet, whichever side it's on, looking good. Okay, so that should be fine, and we've got space for some lava to go on there now. So this is going to go in the spare cork box, and I don't know where that is right now. I think I transferred it into a different box recently, because it was getting in the way. So let's stick this down. Let's move the spare cork out of the camera shot, because this is the exciting stuff here. Okay, I'm going to glue this down like so. Okay, I think I'm satisfied with that. Stuart says you could have done one of those invisible armies I keep not seeing on the internet, all base all the time. Yeah, I have seen games played with just blank bases before, which I suppose is fine for practicing an army before you commit to it. It's optional to use superglue on this phase, by the way. You can use PVA or any other kind of glue, probably. Okay, that's looking good if you ask me. I prefer to use superglue because it doesn't need to be held in place with a vice or anything. I've got clamps that I would put on it if I was using PVA glue, but I just like the speed of the superglue. So this kind of base is going to be what the Shadow Hulk also ends up on. He could probably fit on this as well, maybe. I don't know, he might need nearly all the cork, pretty much. It depends how I'm going to base this army, though, because my Night Stalkers aren't going to have the same bases as my Abyssal Dwarves, so I might not even use cork. In fact, I probably won't, because I'll want something that looks different. So that is the base for the Hellfane. The only other thing that I might do is make a second layer of this, if I decide it needs to be taller. Which is tempting, just because... Look at that thing, look how far it's going to stick out at the base. Look at its nose. There's no way that's going to get into combat with something and not be poking its eye out with its nose. Look how pointy it is. So I'm tempted to make it even higher so it can potentially go over the top of enemy units. Some of them at least, because its chin almost touches the ground. So it's just going to be constantly poking things with that big nose. How could you even avoid that? Maybe if you put it on the base diagonally, there would be less pokage going on. But then, why would you do that? Because you don't know which way it's facing. So we're going to put him down for a moment. And off with the light. So not going to be running this stream for much longer, I think. There's not much else that can be done right now. I think we've had a very exciting time so far, though, haven't we? It was nice to mix things up, jump back into the Hellfane with both feet and get it fully assembled, so that can be next on the chopping block, or the painting block, as it were. It's already been on the chopping block. And if the paints that I need to finish the Grotesques don't arrive tomorrow for some reason, then I've got the option of priming the Hellfane crew and starting the work on those. That would be exciting, wouldn't it? I really want those Grotesques finished and out with the rest of the army on the table, though. Not that I can actually use them in a game right now. But still, I like the process of the unit being finished and then put out there, taking pictures of them. It's very satisfying to see them complete. And I'm being robbed of that feeling by the paints not arriving yet. Brad says, so excite. Yes, much excite. Many excite. Graham says, I was once asked to judge a painting competition at my club. The player who thought he was going to win, and they were expertly painted, lost because he was marked down for not finishing his bases. And rightly so. You shouldn't win a painting competition if the base isn't done. You shouldn't even enter a painting competition with something that isn't finished. That's just crazy. Now, there is a difference between not finished and not finished. And I will explain. So, if you're entering a painting competition with something that clearly has part of it blank and untouched, that is clearly not finished. However, if you're entering a painting competition with something which you later improve, that doesn't mean it wasn't finished. It just means that it wasn't finished up to your standard, not that parts of it were left undone. because I could go back and add more to all my armies that I've painted. That doesn't mean they're not finished now, though. As long as there's work gone into every part of the model, there's colour on every part of the model, and it's consistent throughout, like there isn't a part that's clearly only been base coated whereas the rest has all kinds of highlights and washes going on. You can tell that's different because it's not finished. They were just pushed, not glued into slaughter bases. Yeah, that's just going to let anyone's paint job down, isn't it? If you just push them into slaughter bases. Well, the slaughter base is completely black as well, with no paint on them at all. But yeah, if something's just painted in base coats, and the whole model is like that, to someone that might be finished. So you can't tell them, no, it's not finished. If it's got the correct amount of colours on it, that might just be their style, and that's how they've painted it. But if the whole model is done properly, and then their arm, one of the arms, is done to a much lower standard because it's not finished, then preferably don't enter it into a painting competition. Painting competitions are for models that you have finished to your satisfaction at that point in time. Doesn't mean you can't improve them in the future. And we just clarified that there was no paint on the bases at all. Now, there is a way you could get round this. If, for example, you were using clear bases, you may have some leeway here. Depending on the game system, some games have clear bases to begin with. Some of them might work better with clear bases because of the precision movement and markings on the table. But in general, most wargaming miniatures, they come on a base that you're expected to decorate, at least to a minimum level. So what other exciting developments have we got this week? Well, there is, at some point very soon, there's going to be a full Andy and Rem show, obviously, since we've been working on it for a little while now, but there were some technical issues the last couple of times we attempted to start that, so that's going to be happening soon. It's going to be more live PC gaming action soon as well. More Space Hulk Deathwing, more Vermintide. I may ask Mr. Remington very soon if he wants to try out some Deathwing, not broadcast because I don't think he's really played it, but just as a little tester. And then we can start broadcasting that soon as well because that's quite an exciting game. And I know there are other people out there who might be interested in getting involved in that as well. So if there's anyone who plays Space Hulk Deathwing on Steam or Vermintide 2 on Steam and they're interested in joining in, then feel free to let me know and you'll go through a very strict and harsh selection process. Brad says, same theme song. Yes, the theme song will be the same. And we're actually debuting a professionally recorded version of the theme song as well. So you can look forward to that very much. So it doesn't need to be performed live at the start of the show for times when that's not possible, because Mr. Remington's living situation is a bit different at the moment. So he's not able to just start strumming his guitar ridiculously loud at 9:30 at night anymore. So for the occasions when it can't be performed live right then and there, we do have a full professional version of it ready to go, which can be played because of the software I'm using for the streaming now. So you'll be able to hear it in all its glory, and there's going to be a little intro video with it as well. So that should just fill your heart with all kinds of excitement, shouldn't it? Okay, we've just reached the 1 hour mark. Fluffy Dread says, will the song be available to buy download? Well, I need to ask Mr. Remington about that. I could get him to do some more songs. I could even provide some songs. We could make the Andy and Rem album. Yeah, there'd be high demand for my particular entries onto that. If you've ever heard my singing voice, then I'm sure it's something you're just itching for more of. So yeah, maybe we could put something together. There are a few different versions of the theme song that he sent me, with different instruments involved in them. So yeah, it's something that we shall explore. Obviously, when there's the opportunity of making some sweet, sweet cash, then it's always going to be an option. It's always something that we're going to look at, because cash is king. Yes, please, is the answer I'm getting here. Well, there's demand immediately, so it's something that can be done. Speaking of demand, I'm also putting the finishing touches on the things that I would use as contents for the, what did I even call it? The Andy box, the Andy mystery box. So that's because I've got lots of miniatures from over the years, from all different kinds of games, different ranges, different state of either being on the sprue, being partly assembled, being assembled, not models that I've painted or are part painted, because that's just not a very nice surprise for anyone. I think you'd rather have stuff that's at least kind of new, or maybe you could specify that if you're buying one. And people do like mystery boxes. I bought some from Mantic, and I think I've got enough stuff to put a few mystery boxes together. The amount of stuff I put in them would determine what kind of price we'd be looking at for them. But it wouldn't be very expensive, because there's a lot of stuff I'd want to get rid of, but listing it on eBay individually, either there's not going to be that much demand for most of it, or it wouldn't be worth it because of the eBay fees, and it wouldn't sell for that much. So best just to stick it all in a big box, get a small amount of money for it, and then someone gets to open. It's like Christmas morning, isn't it? Opening up the mysterious Andy box. And I think there'd be untold demand for that. By untold, I mean there'd probably be about 3 people that would consider it, depending on the price. So if anyone is watching this later, and the permanent comments are open rather than the chat box, then feel free to make your intentions known if you would be interested in a mystery Andy box. Most of the stuff I've got that I would be looking to get rid of, I've got tons of Mantic stuff. I've got a lot of Dead Zone and Kings of War stuff lying around. There is also a fair amount of GW stuff that I'm never going to get around to using. Some newish, some really, really old. There's other companies, there's bits of terrain here and there. There's dice I don't need, there's bases I could throw in there. What else have I got? Just glancing around the room now. Yeah, it's just a gold mine. There's books, there's sets of cards for game systems. So yeah, I think I could possibly get people to specify what kind of thing they're interested in, and then I could gear the box specifically towards their tastes mostly. There'd be a couple of things in there outside of their preferences, but I could make sure that there's at least going to be things in there that would tickle their interest, at least. I think that would be the right way to go with it, rather than having it completely random, and there's a chance there's just nothing in there that you'd want. So Brad says that's $1 million idea. I assume that's some kind of statement of intent that you would like to buy 5 of them for a hefty price. Fluffy Dread says you could do a GW box, a Mantic box, Dead Zone box, etc. Yeah, that's definitely an option. And what else would go in there? Because I've got a lot of miniatures that are half painted. So I suppose I could let people specify as well whether they're only interested in stuff that's actually on a sprue or new in a bag, or whether they'd be interested in stuff that's half built, maybe even half converted or half painted as well. Because you never know, some people are into that kind of stuff, and then others would just immediately be outraged that anyone would consider putting that in a box. So you might have to gauge the individual preferences and then put it together based on that. There's bound to be some orange dice in there as well, so everyone can use that. Okay, I think it's time to wrap this one up. A little bit shorter than usual because there wasn't as much to be done right now, because my paints haven't arrived yet. So hopefully they'll arrive tomorrow. What day is it today? It's Friday, so yeah, I should be able to get them on Saturday. And then I will come online at some point in the afternoon or the evening and do some more paint work on the Grotesques, possibly even finish them tomorrow. If the paints arrive early enough, it should be doable. So, like I said, leave a permanent comment with whether you would be interested in an Andy mystery box and what kind of stuff you would like to see in there. And I'll continue to gauge interest and assemble the piles of stuff that I've got that could be placed into them. Okay, let's wrap this one up. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, the various social media nonsense down there, Twitter, my Facebook group. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that nonsense as well. And of course, there are also the various fundraising sources in the description as well. If you feel like throwing all your money at me for some reason, then you're free to do so. And other than that, who are we going to get to say goodnight this time? Let's get the Hellfane and its really pointy face out, shall we? Okay, all that remains to be said is, what does a Hellfane sound like? Got to give it a voice. Let's give it a wildly inappropriate voice. Good night out there, whatever you are.